Jati? Matvi, I want to thank you for translating through that as well. Can we have a hand for Matvi, please? Thank you. And thank you, Alexander. All right, time for our next panel now. This one's called Empowering Ukraine's Future, Tools to Support Private Sector Engagement. And I'd like to have the National Industry Leader for Energy, Utilities, Mining, and Industrial Products and Services, who will moderate this discussion. From PwC, please welcome Neil Manji.
Thanks, Steve. And we had a great panel today, and we actually had 2 in person and 4 virtual. So this is a test of all of our technology, and I can see it up on screen in a second, and it's working very well. So I'm deeply honored, first of all, to moderate this panel today. This is a very pivotal time. The conversation today has been excellent. And today we're going to focus a lot about the opportunity and incentives that are there to have the private sector more involved in the rebuilding of Ukraine. So I'm going to spend some time with our panel, talking a little bit about what the opportunities are, but also how they can help in the assets we have for our community. But to get us started, let's introduce ourselves. This is going to be a test of 2 things. One, can give us in 1 minute each. And second, the test of our audio systems as well. So Leah, if I start with you, can you just introduce yourself and the organization you represent?
Okay, Phyllis, my mic's working. Yeah. I'm Leah Gilbert-Morris. I'm the Vice President of Public Affairs and International Relations at Export Development Canada, EDC. And for those who don't know, EDC is Canada's official export credit agent. So we are a financial institution owned by the Canadian government, and we use our toolkit of financial solutions, insurance, financing, guarantees, etc., to help connect and grow Canada's trade around the world.
Well done. Francis.
Jacques Lussier. Sorry. So that's the first.
Yes. Franco, Francis, I keep calling him Jean.
So Jean Lussier from Fairfax. I'm getting worried you're hearing a little too much from me, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you, Jean. I'm going to go to the screen, and if I can start with Lisa.
Yes, hello. I'm Lisa Kessler. I'm IHC, the International Finance Corporation's country manager for Ukraine, joining you this evening from Kiev. IHC is the private sector arm of the World Bank Group. So while our IBRD colleagues support the public sector, IHC and our NIGA sister organizations support the private sector. Just by way of setting the scene, in Ukraine, IHC has invested $2.7 billion since the full-scale invasion across a range of sectors, which I think we will get into. We have a large pipeline. We're working on about $3 billion worth of investment now, and looking forward to attracting some Canadian partners to our portfolio. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Welcome. I'll turn to Roman now to do a quick intro.
Yes, thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone there. Доброго дня. Good evening from here at Thessaloniki, Greece. I represent the Black Sea Trade and Development Bank. It's a regional development bank that covers countries near and neighboring the Black Sea. Ukraine is a prominent member of that, and we're here to support Ukraine as much as we can. The bank has got about a balance sheet of about 2 billion euro, and has been, I'd say, about 15% of our portfolio is in Ukraine, and has weathered the storm relatively well, and we're going onward. So we can talk further later about some other investments we've done and investments we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Roman. And Artem, if you could introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you so much, and my apologies for not being there in person. The name's Adam Shumlov. I represent Ukraine on the board of directors of EBRD, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, headquartered in London, but it is the biggest institutional investor in Ukraine. More than happy to go through numbers later on, but we have operating assets just in excess of approaching 10 billion euros, portfolio approaching 6 billion euros. And it has been growing steadily since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. I also sit on the supervisory board of Privat Bank, the biggest bank in Ukraine, so have some insights on how the Ukrainian banking system demonstrated its tremendous resilience during famine war.
Perfect, thank you. And last but not least, Sven, if you can introduce yourself.
Hi, good afternoon. I represent probably the most exotic institution of all of Europe, the European Investment Bank, which is not the European answer to Goldman Sachs, but the development bank owned by the EU member states. And we're also the largest multilateral bank globally, so we're bigger than the World Bank. But we're cheating a little bit because for this exposure is EU stuff, right? So it's there to do big volume instead of the euros. I'm not going to compete with the EBRD and IFC about who's the largest investor in Ukraine. We also have quite a large exposure. We've been around for about 20 years. And I'm actually representing here, I'm sitting in for our head of office. So we have a pretty sizable office in Kiev and Ukraine.
Thank you, Sven. And we want more exposure for all of your institutions into Ukraine. I think that's our strategy. So the first part of the panel is really to talk a little bit about the role that the institutions play in the recovery of Ukraine. And then the second part, really to almost double click with each institution about the mechanisms they have and how we incent private sector investment. And then the last part, we'll just talk a little about the forward looking. So Leah, I'll start with you. Really your organization's vision for the recovery of Ukraine and the instruments that you're using to facilitate that. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure, I'm happy to. So I don't think anybody is going to challenge the reality that Ukraine is facing from an economic standpoint. But after all we have been hearing this morning and will continue to hear this afternoon, I also don't think that anyone's going to challenge the incredible resilience and innovation that exists in Ukraine. And I think with the sort of fertilizer that peace will bring, there is tremendous growth opportunity on a very near-term scale. And so our vision is that Canada and Canadian, not just business, but also our financial players play a key role in those opportunities and helping that growth take hold. I think here in Canada, we have a lot of solutions, a lot of offerings, a lot of technology, innovation, tools, and opportunities to bring to some of the needs, challenges that Ukraine is very clearly saying they have and are looking to partner to solve. So, those solutions are in the sectors we've all talked about: energy, it's mining, it's technology, it's agriculture, infrastructure. And our vision is to, have EDC play a bigger role in helping to de-risk a lot of those opportunities that exist there. If you give me 30 more seconds, I think I'm going to highlight the defense and security sector, because that's a difference from the last time EDC was here in this forum. So we had changed our position and are actively supporting defense and security transactions in key markets, Ukraine included. And we know that this is a sector that is really leading edge in some innovation spaces and the potential for advanced manufacturing and new technologies and the ability to integrate Canadian defense and security capabilities into their supply chains is really poised for growth. So we like to see more of this enabled going forward.
I think that's excellent, because it not only helps the Ukrainian rebuild, but the Canadian economy too as well. Canadian companies are looking to repivot to defense sector. They can actually be suppliers to Ukraine. So that's exciting to us.
Yeah, that's the last clarification of an export credit agency. That's our mandate, is to drive Canadian trade.
Exactly. So Lisa, I'll go to you next. If you could just talk about IFC and a little bit about your overarching vision for the Ukrainian recovery and the issues you're using.
Yeah, so when I think about our program, which includes both financing and advisory to private partners, it's along two parallel lines. One is about supporting the resilience of the private sector, keeping companies moving, keeping them providing jobs, paying taxes, providing services, and so forth. And then the second is around reconstruction, which is happening already now. IFC did a report together with our World Bank colleagues, which we published a couple of years ago, looking at the opportunities for private sector to participate in reconstruction and found that about a third of the reconstruction needs, which the total is about $500 billion now, about a third could be covered by the private sector. So we're trying to support reconstruction at the same time as resilience. Just to give a flavor of what we've been doing, so we do quite a lot to work with banks on the ground, including Privat Bank, which Arta mentioned. That's actually one of our more recent clients, where we're engaged in risk-sharing facilities together with EBRD has a similar approach, which I think is really useful for the banks because they actually have a fair amount of liquidity, but there's so much risk. When that risk is shared with them, they can actually really increase their lending. Another thing we've done with banks, it has never stopped, even in the spring of 2022, is supporting de-risking trade finance. And through that, we have supported about $700 million, mostly for imports to Ukraine, but also supporting actually some exports of agribusiness. And then through, just to mention some of the work through funds, so we have supported Horizon Capital together with a couple of the other DFIs on this call, which supports Ukrainian SMEs in tech. And most recently, actually just 2 weeks ago in Warsaw, we signed with Dragon Capital a new fund, which is to support SMEs, as well as one that we signed earlier this year with Flyer One, which is for startups. And last, I'll just mention, but I think some of my colleagues might talk about them because we have co-financed a couple of really exciting projects that are a good example of what I think is already reconstruction, and that's in renewable energy and the telecom sector. So there's been some significant investments in reconstruction already in things that one wouldn't normally expect to be financed by the private sector during wartime. But I think I'll leave it to Artem and Roman more about that.
That's very good.
Lucky to do those together. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. And we'll come back to a couple of those projects. And so maybe, Artem, you can carry on as far as how you look at it from your institution and the instruments you're using right now.
Yeah, surely. Look, the EBRD, as I said, has been a major player in the Ukrainian real economy. It's, look, in time of war, it's very difficult to compare numbers because everybody's focusing on the dozens of billions that are going through essentially the budget support. But when it comes to the real economy investments, so since February 2022, so far, EBRD has deployed around 8.7 billion euros. This year alone, we are currently standing at around 2 billion euros, and this is to increase in the coming 2 weeks. We have a number of Ukrainian projects coming for Tulu until the end of the year. Quite naturally, this has been dominated by the energy sector playing. EBRD being a demand-driven institution was looking at what is being asked on the ground. And again, unlike IFC, we cover both private sector and public sector, so we are actively engaged with the state-owned enterprises in Ukraine. That's why our major energy sector clients in this past 3 years have been the Ukrenergo, so the national utility operator, to make sure that the lights are on. Naftogaz, the national oil and gas champion, again, the company that produces and supplies most, if not all, of the Ukrainian natural gas. Ukrenergo, the hydro generator, again, state-owned utility, but a major provider of electricity to the grid. We are actively engaged with the Ukrainian railways. Again, don't forget, Ukrainian skies are closed, so railways are the most important infrastructure supplier, logistics services supplied in Ukraine. And we have supported them both for their actual transportation needs, but also in their attempt to create distributed power generation. At the same time, as I said, numbers-wise, public sector dominates the playing field, but we do see private sector. We are trying to support private sector as much as possible. We have done a number of investments with private sector companies in the energy sector, including renewables. We've done wind farms. I'm I probably will not mention specific main client names to avoid advertisement. But we have done several battery storage deals. And again, this shows that EBRD is looking for viable private sector projects. Outside of the energy sector, we are quite active in the financial institutions space. We work with a number of Ukrainian banks. As I have mentioned in the introduction, the Ukrainian banks, both state-owned banks and private banks, have demonstrated tremendous resilience at the time of war. EBRD sees them as very valuable agents in order to reach wider selection of private sector clients, especially in the SME sector. We have various instruments with Ukrainian banks, risk sharing, special topic products like women in business, veterans in business, various inclusivity themes that we support with our credit lines, and local banks then extend individual loans to the SMEs in UK. We are looking to be useful in traditional areas of EBRD expertise like privatization and PPPs. But as you would imagine, at a time of war, it's more challenging. So these are more of preliminary conversations with the government now. And the last but not the least is the policy dialogue. It's not only about investment. EBRD is very heavily engaged with the Ukrainian authorities to make sure that the necessary reforms, the investment climate is improving regardless of the war challenges that we see every day. We see that it's a difficult task. You've seen news from Ukraine in recent weeks. But again, it's in our view, it's a glass half full. We think that it's a demonstration of the institutions working. And we're happy to be a partner in this process.
Okay, thank you for that. It's a good update for us as far as an overview. Sean, I come to you because Fairfax has significant investments over time in Ukraine. Maybe you could give us a sense on your view of Ukraine longer term and investors here in people.
Yeah, and so we've been in Ukraine since 2015, when a lot of investors were leaving Ukraine. So for us, it's been and it continues to be a significant opportunity. You've heard earlier, we're investing in agricultural, insurance. So we view we've done well. We've done well in wartime, and so we think that this will end, and we will be still very much active in Ukraine and continue to do very well. So it's all about risk, de-risking, and I think the question will come. But we view certainly Ukraine as a great opportunity. Insurance-wise, it's still very low penetration, so a lot of potential. And with all this activity and the economic development, obviously create a lot of opportunities on the insurance side. So that's probably at a high level the two areas. And encouraging people to come to Ukraine, we're kind of saying, well, maybe we can take a look first. So on one side we are, but on the other side, I would encourage any investor, now's the time. It's absolutely the time to look at all the opportunities there. Because if you wait for the war to end, it'll be too late.
And so you lead by example, and we're going to come to war insurance a little bit because there's some specifics I want to get to that. I think I'd like to just round up with Roman and Sven just to go fast on just your organization view, an overarching kind of view of Ukraine. So Roman, if we could start with you, and then Sven, we can round off with you.
Thank you. I mean, the bank has been involved in Ukraine. You touched the full-scale invasion, but we continued on, and throughout that period, initially it was about supporting our clients as best we could, because we were hit a little bit harder, maybe some of our brethren, because we're a smaller institution and it had a larger impact on our portfolio, but we managed it very well. And we continue supporting our existing clients, providing trade finance or other support in terms of lending or other support needed first. Then we went on and started continued investing with our either existing clients or new clients. We did a big wind farm that was touched upon by both my IFC and EBRD colleagues with Kalmuk in Ukraine. And it's 150 megawatts wind farm. It's a massive wind farm that we signed earlier this year, and is already is being built actively in Western Ukraine, and already preparing for a second project that's going to be even bigger, so almost 200 megawatts. So we have two massive wind parks that are being developed. As well as that, we have other energy projects. We have another almost dozen in the energy and infrastructure space, which I oversee. Plus, we have another number of projects we're looking both in our general industries and our financial institution teams. I mean, we've been supporting financial institutions, some of the smaller ones, doing the credit lines, supporting them so we can get to the local players or the smaller players that's more difficult for us to address. And in all the industrial players that need support. So we've been trying to support as much as we can. We are smaller, so we don't do the big tickets or can't support everyone, but we're trying to support as much as they can in Ukraine. And throughout that, we're pretty happy with the portfolio. It's done very well. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sven, if you could round off, and if I can give you 1 minute for this, and I can get to the other question.
I'm sorry, you're very generous. I've got 5 seconds left. EIB, I'm getting mixed to the bank, so I mix up myself. EIB is probably best known for public sector support, so we're doing a bit like what the World Bank is doing. Let's say public sector infrastructure, and actually we used our portfolio at the beginning of the full state investment within days to make a relatively big upfront disbursement. So we were just looking for legal ways of injecting the credits into Ukraine before the IMF programs were up and running. And I think they said to not. We concentrated more on public sector reconstruction as the invasion sort of went on, and how we are supporting private sector again. I think we have the largest support program for Ukrainian banks of all the 3 or 4 of us here in the room, but probably depends on how you count it. So that's a big part of our supply as well. Our aim is to make sure that Ukraine can become the EIB shareholder. So to be a shareholder, it has to be a EU member state, and we do everything to help Ukraine to remain strong, reconstruct, and be ready for the single market of full-scale EU integration with competitive pressure and everything that it entails, including the physical interconnection between the transport, electricity, and telecommunication networks, for instance.
Sure. Thank you, Sven. I'll come back to you on some of the infrastructure projects as well. So now we've got an overview of each of the institutions and what they're focused on. I'm going to do that double click. And I'll start with you, just to understand a few of the mechanisms that are available. And you used the word toolkit quite a few times. So tell us about that toolkit that's available to Kenyan companies. How do you facilitate the operations of moving into Ukraine and selling into there? And the local risks that have to be Deborah.
Sure. So speaking of toolkits, last year, but this time we introduced a Rebuild Ukraine toolkit that actually puts all of our information, all of our solutions in very plain language descriptions on how Canadian companies or Ukrainian companies can think about finding opportunities and then using our solutions to help make those come to reality. We're a standard export credit agency in the sense that we offer credited charts. This covers the risks associated with non-payments, with shipment. It includes war risk coverage. But we are also a direct lending institution and have a large financing program. And that is what we look to when we think about longer-term, bigger-scale rebuilding projects. We have guarantees. This kind of relates to unlocking private capital, and you may want to go there a little bit more. But we can go up to 100% coverage in our guarantees to work and help crowd in more financial players to drive more private capital sources into transactions in the market. I think what's new, net new in terms of EDC and our approaches, I think, well, first I'd mention our change in defense and security sector support. The second, and you heard MP Naki speak about it quickly this morning about the introduction, or I'll say reintroduction after 20 years of EDC's ability to leverage the tied aid rules that exist under the OECD framework. So we see that the Ukrainian market is not there is high concessionality, and that's a tool that is used to enable projects to go ahead. It is used to de-risk. It is used to catalyze other forms of investment. And so this is a new, or I guess a net new capability of ours that we are deploying. I think that this is going to be quite a useful solution to help a lot more business get done with Ukraine.
And that's really helpful. Yeah, and just go back to that guarantee concept. So how do the guarantees work? How would a company engage with you to look at guarantee?
Yeah, so yes, we can be a direct lender. We can give then and here a direct loan for him to pursue his business. But we don't like to take that space from commercial banks or other players. We actually prefer Suzanne to be able to work with his existing banking partner, or actually introduce him to more players in the financial sector to broaden his pool of capital access. And so we can guarantee that debt with the private financial institution. In this normal limiting guest case for Ukraine, we are willing to go all the way up to 100%, which means that bank gets repaid if somehow then I'm thinking any of your business endeavors wouldn't repay your lending. And so they can take, like, we're taking the risk of non-payment in those scenarios, and hopefully catalyzing those financial institutions to stay in and to grow their willingness to work more businesses.
Well, that minute was like, I'm your agent too as well, so I had 10%. I think we need to get that more well known, right? That the guarantees there and 100% available. So that's a great opportunity for paying businesses to focus on. Sean, I'd like to come to you because there's a lot of conversation about war, risk insurance, Fairfax is involved in this. Can you help us understand how this works with the mechanics of this and give us a...
Sure. So obviously a lot of vehicles, some are, in terms of guarantees and loan protection. So I'm the insurance guy here, and we do property casualty, non-life. So what do we cover? We basically cover damages by a drone or a missile strike. If I want to simplify, that's what we do. And it has evolved over time. So we started in 2023. We did it on our own balance sheet. So this was done strictly for our retail customers. So your own home or auto. So we did write a fair amount of that business. And I've been knocking on doors for since the beginning of the war to get additional capacity. So in 2024, we got a deal with the DFCs. So on our own, we were willing to do $500,000 maximum risk. And then with the DFC, that capacity went up to $2.5 million. So you can look at a little bigger risk. And then this year, which is also, we feel, the private sector has a big role to play. We've done a deal with Lloyd's. I think it was mentioned earlier today. So we've got now up to 25 Lloyd's syndicate supporting us. We can put up to 30 million of capacity on a specific risk. So you can see over time, and when we're not the only one, but I'm just trying, and Fairfax is trying to build that capacity so that we can offer that coverage. So it's, again, very specific. We underwrite, we price, and we manage all that exposure. Obviously, we're getting some support now on the private sector, which is excellent. I'm still working on my friends at EDC to give me a little capacity from Canada, but that's pretty well what we've done. We're looking at this as, unfortunately for now, continuing to expand this, but we're also thinking post-war, what kind of coverage is, and we will continue to evolve. But I know there's been a lot of talk and a lot of discussions about investment and projects. Usually the second question that comes up is, what about insurance? How can we get insurance? So we are there. We do it. We're encouraging others, and I know there's other international players now that are looking to come in, because we can't and we don't want to be the only one. But even during wartime, insurance has a role to play, and I'm happy that we're one of the vehicle, and it's been helping first individuals, which is again very important for us. Now we're getting into small to medium-sized businesses, which again will be very important factor. And it is a very important factor in rebuilding the economy. So we're happy to be able to help some of these businesses, and over time, working with some of the big financial institutions that we have, with us, hopefully we can develop insurance capacity, but there will be obviously other vehicles to use. But that's the one that Fairfax put in place and tries to continue to develop over time.
Certainly very good for us to understand how this works, and syndication allows you to expand the coverage, which is really, really important. I'm going to pick up this with Lisa. Lisa, you can go next. Really, it's about the priorities for IFC, and especially when you think about small, medium enterprises, and which sectors are you picking? How do you look at this from market perspective?
Great, thanks. Maybe staying on instruments just for a second, just to say that IFC can offer to potential investors pretty much every instrument, from equity to debt, guarantees. The insurance and political risk insurance, our sister organization, MICA, is able to provide political risk insurance, which includes war risk insurance. On the sectors of priority for us, so it's really the sectors that either are essential to Ukraine's continued resilience or for reconstruction. So we're interested in working through financial institutions and funds to reach SMEs, because that's a priority for us to reach smaller businesses. But it's not efficient for us to do that directly. So we work through banks or funds, or actually also one leasing company. When we do direct, also through funds, which I think I covered before. In terms of thinking about direct financing, whether it's through loans or equity, agribusiness has been a backbone of Ukraine's economy, as I'm sure everyone in the room knows. And it's been a big part of IFC's portfolio for the 30 plus years that we've been operating in Ukraine, and continues to be a priority sector for us. We're also looking to do more in infrastructure. So we talked about renewable energy, but we're also very interested in transport and logistics. And finally, I would say some of the more difficult sectors that we are interested in would relate more to social infrastructure and housing. So we, together with our World Bank colleagues, we've been looking at solutions to try to bring in more financing to housing. But it's the related sector, which is maybe a little easier, would be construction materials. And then finally, we're also looking at healthcare. We're engaged with 3 Ukrainian cities on PPP in healthcare, where we hope to attract private partners to support Ukraine's healthcare.
So lots and lots of sectors that you're focused on, a great opportunity.
It's not very prioritized, it's quite broad.
It's a lot of opportunities, what you're also thinking about as far as looking at Ukraine. The other question I have for you, Lisa, is really about the overall involvement. We've got IFC, you've got World Bank, you have the EBRD, EIB. There's a lot of different institutions we talked about here today. how do you coordinate? How is it easy for one institution or one company to deal with so many different institutions? And how do you coordinate amongst yourselves? What's the best mandate in an organization?
An example is actually something we have just announced recently, together actually with ETRD, which is calling it the Ramp Up program, which is to look at how to bring more private finance to renewables. And there's very quickly, just to mention two components to that. One is more on the policy side, so helping put into place the regulations and policy needed to make it more bankable for the private sector to come in and invest in renewables. But the second, where IFC is a bit more involved, is more on the commercial side. It's looking at how you manage the risk of price changes in energy to make it possible for an energy company to come in and build, say, a wind plant, knowing that they can have some certainty over the energy price for a number of years. And so we're looking together with EPRD to create such a mechanism. I think lots of interesting things we're doing together.
But that really creates an economic model that they can see the visibility of cash flows, and then you can look at it from a model perspective as far as finance and stuff. It works.
Precisely.
I mean, if I can turn to Arts, and I think EBRD is one of the largest institutional investors in Ukraine. There was the announcement of 7.6 billion of wartime financing. Can you help us understand a little bit more about even public-private partnerships, how you look at that, what the opportunity is in the future for those type of things?
Well, it's an excellent question, but I'll probably park the PPTs for the end of my response. Now it stands at 8.7, and probably will get closer to 9 by the end of the year. But the numbers are relevant. But as I said, a lot of that came with the energy sector, and it came from the emergency response that EBRD has provided. This year alone, 770 million euros is the two facilities that EBRD has extended to Naftogaz to finance the natural gas tankers. To sound like the logic, the rationale is very simple. You need to make sure that there is gas in the system that Ukraine has. Oops, all right. My lights went off. The Ukrainians will be with heat, and Ukrainians will be with electricity through the winter months, and that's why we can do that. Talking about the coverage and various instruments, how this is achieved, last year EBRD has included its general capital increase, which was an unprecedented step to strengthen the financial position of the institution, and it was specifically targeted to support increased investment in Ukraine. We are also benefiting from the fact that we are a European bank for construction development, so we do have non-European shareholders. I mean, our biggest single shareholder is the United States. Canada is a major shareholder, but it is predominantly a European organization, so we do benefit from access to various EU-backed instruments. And the Ukraine Investment Facility is one of those platforms, one of those pools of coverage that we can utilize. It allows us to extend loans to clients which otherwise would be difficult to finance at the time of war. And that also given the limitations of the Ukrainian sovereign to extend guarantees. As you know, under the terms of the IMF program, Ukrainian government is being limited in the amount of sovereign guarantees it can extend. And we probably would like to do more in private space, but it is challenging. But there's a sentiment on the ground. It depends on whether there was another Russian attack overnight. We have done some major private sector deals, for example, in agribusiness or in the metalworks. But these are probably rather an exception because, again, for example, our metalworks client is part of a major international group, so can provide the relevant coverage. The agribusiness client, together, is a major Ukrainian company, but with a major international reputation, so we can work with that. we do see tremendous opportunities in agribusiness processing. We really want Ukraine to become a more value-added exporter, rather shipping away from primary agriculture. We are looking to support projects in infrastructure, both on the private sector side, as we, for example, do with local partners in the private capital, or on the public sector side, and this is where PPP becomes extremely relevant. EBRD has been supporting PPPs in the port sector on the Black Sea, including the policy dialogue, so building the legal framework to allow the PPPs to be operational. That work has been, as we put on the back burner with the full-scale invasion. But again, we are standing ready to resume this work as soon as the conditions on the ground allows.
Okay, thank you, Artem. It's good summary. A lot of things you're working on. I'm going to ask Roman if we could talk a little bit about, and you touched on this, as far as inserting liquidity into some of the Ukrainian banks, and understand that you're working with the Japanese bank as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that works and how that sort of creates more investment and opportunity for Ukrainian companies?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we're primarily a lender, first of all. We have other instruments, but we're primarily a lender. And we have provided credit lines to various smaller banks in Ukraine, but, we're doing what we can, and we're trying to leverage in other financing as well. So one of the things we've done is we've signed an agreement with the Japanese Bank for International Cooperation, which they help fund us, allows us to do even more in Ukraine. So therefore, this is something we're trying to ramp up as well. It's about 150 million to us, which it's for Ukraine and neighbors, but it could be all Ukraine and some neighbors, or half and half, so to speak. So this is something we have in place with JBIC, the Japanese Bank for International Cooperation, and looking to utilize that through all our projects in Ukraine. And some of the projects, like I touched upon wind, but I think Lisa talked about coordination, and you asked about coordination. It's interesting because when we work with projects, for example, we have various projects with EBRD or IFC or all of us. We're always working with the client with one agreement. We always have one set of agreements, one set of advisors, and therefore to the client, it's very unified. There is perfect coordination on comparing these type of projects. And other things that we're trying to do in terms of support with what's going on in Ukraine. It was interesting. I had a discussion or brainstorming with Roman Gupchak, who's Canada's on the Business Advisory Council on behalf of Canada. And we were sort of brainstorming what can be done in terms of energy in Ukraine. And we were talking, and I said, look at what happened recently in Romania. Romania ended up getting a significant amount of money from the EU to support the CFD, Contract for Business program. So therefore, all of a sudden, what is happening now is that it's Romania in terms of renewable projects is going gangbusters. I'm getting a proposal almost every day from Romania. We hope that can be replicated in Ukraine with the Ukraine, risk mitigation mechanism that's being developed as well. If that came out of the URC, I think it's a great idea. This is something we're following and therefore hoping to see more projects coming forward this time.
Thank you for that. It's a really good summary, and it shows about the liquidity and the coordination you talked about. So I think that's really important for us to understand how that works. Sven, you've been very patient. I'm going to ask you just about alternative or innovative financing instruments that EIB might be working on. So if you could tell us a little bit about that and what your organization is thinking about.
We're supposed to be a boring institution that are not used to this type of questions about innovative instruments. So we're developing at the moment, we will be developing pretty soon, a scheme in which EIB will combine ECA, so export credit agencies, for the unbelieving Europeans, but it would be nice to could access to ECAs of countries which are major role in the donor coordination, for instance, and guarantees from the EU budget. So the credit assistance framework, we are all using basically. We're competing for the EU funds. To provide a package to the foreign investors and also to Ukrainian importers that on the one hand de-risk the magnets us, but also de-risk investors because we try to structure up to 100% political risk tolerance. It's a bit like war risk insurance. But this sounds awfully complicated. I think it will be very complicated, but I also think it addresses the fraud market gaps. That's why we got the EU funding, because we have to demonstrate that, get additional to private sector players. And if we can pull it off, I think it would create a new kind of instruments, which also our shares then get copy. And we can unlock quite a lot of risk sharing by combining institutional pots of money like the US, but also expert criminal aid. So I'm quite excited about it. I'm slightly scared about the work, but if it works, then as I said, it could probably be scaled up by also involving non-EU research.
Thank you, Sven. It's very clear the theme that's coming out is collaboration amongst the organizations we talked about here, the opportunity to de-risk through insurance, wartime insurance. So a real willingness to try to make this work and show this can work through examples you talked about. I'm going to go to some forward-looking things. And Sean, you mentioned this too as well. It could be too late to start thinking about it. And so what would be your key message to companies right now who are still hesitating